What sort of issues keep you up at night? Do you feel your own life is no longer in your own hands? You need a place to ask for accountability. Part of our job is to give voice to your struggle, so that those who can make a difference hear you loud and clear. This nation needs critical thinkers such as yourselves, and we will come to you so that you can be heard. This is your place to ask and know. And I'll help you make sense of it all.
Headlines this hour: 4 people have died in a fire in Jeppestown in Johannesburg this morning. The national head of the Hawks, Godfrey Labia, says it made significant inroads in apprehending individuals involved in high-profile cases. And German police have arrested a suspect in connection with Friday night's stabbing attack in the city of Zolingen. It's Sunday afternoon, and at midday it's time for The Week Ahead. Welcome from our studio here in Johannesburg. We are live with you on the SABC News channel. I'm Gustav Freiling. Good afternoon. If you would like to participate during the next 2 hours, please give us a call to share your comment or ask a question. The number is 011 714 0681, 080 or 0682. Right, we're going to take you live now to a news conference in Johannesburg that is about PRASA and their readiness for the rugby match next week. The Minister of Transport, Barbara Creasy, will today test the integrated Gautrain PRASA train services to the Emirates Airline Park Stadium, that's Ellis Park, ahead of the Springboks and the All Blacks Championship Test match happening there next week. Let's take you live to that media conference now.
Urge you all to see the positive side of what is happening in Gauteng. Gauteng is going through a major rejuvenation, and it hasn't only happened in the last month or so, it's happened over many, many months and lots of planning. So to everybody, come to the home of the Springboks. Ellis Park is the place to be next Saturday, where we will see a triumphant Springboks once again playing against the All Blacks in the repeat of the final, which took place just last year. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
I was told the President was going to hand over to the Ellis Park management, but George, you can go ahead. I think he's chipped on your 2 minutes, you can cover.
The Minister gave me 1 minute of hers. Thank you very much. Thank you. Honoured to be here. All protocols observed. We do appreciate it. From the Ellis Park side, we are truly humbled to have this opportunity to make a difference and a change for all our spectators. Time flies. 20 years ago, South Africa was awarded the 2010 FIFA World Cup, and I was very honoured to be working with the MEC, then MEC, Mrs. Creasy, on all the greater development of Ellis Park Stadium and securing the FIFA World Cup. The most important thing that we've realised now is that our spectator experience is utmost. And so we're focusing on that, and this experience that you're having today is testament to that. But one thing about our precinct, we've got to understand that it's more than just rugby, it's a sporting precinct. The greater Ellis Park development took place in 2007 to 2009, and that had amazing results. We have let something slip, but today is the testament to that we can get back on the train. We've had cricket played at Ellis Park. We've had the 1998 athletics take place in Johannesburg Stadium. We've had Davis Cup competitions at the arena. We've had the swimming pool doing it. A couple of months ago, SA Netball had their 2024 nationals. All those means that we are a sporting precinct, and we've got to look and cater for all of it. What PRASA is doing today, and obviously with the great support of Train, is it will allow our spectators to be able to go to any one of those sporting codes events and enjoy it and have a great experience. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We're honoured to be here. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, George. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a good story that we are telling. At this point, we are going to get into the Q&As. I'm just going to take one set of questions, maybe do 4 questions, and then the rest will be follow-up questions.
So that is a media conference at PRASA about the upgrading of the Ellis Park precinct and getting spectators to that precinct with a Gautrain and then with a PRASA train from the Park Station in Johannesburg to the Ellis Park Stadium. From that media briefing, we're now going to go to Dada Morero, the mayor of Johannesburg, and he's briefing the media on this devastating fire in Jeppestown this morning.
And over and above, we've also to establish the ownership of the building. We now know that it's owned by a particular company. So we are continuing to finalize the investigation so that we can get the owners also to take responsibility of their own property and what has happened into their property, whilst of course the city has an obligation to deal with the current situation and the situation therefore after. So basically that's where we are now with the current situation.
We have seen this kind of scene quite recently with the Usindiso building that claims more than 70 lives, and of course we've seen other situations where buildings catch fire here in Johannesburg. Is there a bigger crisis to look at in terms of this?
Well, we should admit that this is a bigger problem that requires all of us, both government and the private sector, and you'd know that we've been engaging with our national government and provincial government to also help us find a sustainable solution. And one of the biggest problems that we're experiencing is those buildings that are constantly being hijacked by criminal syndicates, which requires us to also get law enforcement. And there are investigations that are ongoing, but I must say we need a drastic solution to this matter which will be sustainable. So we know that the city, between the departments, they have now developed a strategy which I think is just around 90% complete, which they've indicated that they will then put it onto our table this week so that we can implement that strategy, which is a mixed into the solutions. One, taking over those that are government-owned and immediately processing them through Johannesburg Property Company and MMC of Economic Development so that those buildings can be put out for entrepreneurs to take them over and turn them whether residential and commercial. That is the first thing. But what we have also realized that majority of young black entrepreneurs do not necessarily have the financial muscle to be able to implement these programs much quicker. So we are also looking as part of the solutions how we are going to approach institutions like PIC and others to see how best they can bring some resources to help the entrepreneurs so that entrepreneurs can take over these buildings. Because I think the biggest challenge is the fact that they struggle to raise money from financial institutions. And as a result of that, because some have already given them the buildings, but as a result of an inability to raise resources, they have not been able to refurbish, renovate, and allow for residential spaces in those buildings. So we think we just need now to be very aggressive in implementing the strategy.
Speaking to emergency services earlier on, Mr. he indicated that, of course, there's still an investigation going on, but they did notice that there are some illegal connections within the building. Is that something that we are looking at as well, dealing with illegal connections in terms of electricity?
Well, we have taken a view. You are aware that even the last 2 weeks, we have been aggressive on dealing with illegal connections throughout the city, driven by our revenue department with City Power and Joburg Water. So that aggressive program has been there, and we call upon, of course, our communities to desist from involving themselves in illegal connection. And in fact, as part of the solutions, especially in the informal settlements, we are implementing what we're calling microgrids, which is power, solar power, that we are giving to informal settlements. We've already done one. We are in a process of rolling out to all informal settlements, which will then reduce illegal connection and allow those that are poor and are in the informal settlements at least access to energy.
Mayor Katleo,
Katleo.
Yes, Mayor, can you tell us the kind of company that owns this building, even if you're not able to share the name, or if you can?
No, it's a private entity. I might not know what it used to do. As you know, this was a factory abandoned some years ago, so we'll establish exactly what was the operations and the business operations in this building. But that detail, the city manager and our team already has the detail of the name of the company. They just have to do a bit of investigations.
Mayor, what happens to the destitute residents now? I understand it will be a multi-pronged approach to get them temporary shelter. What happens to those who are living in the building now?
Who are in the building here? No, the intention is to move them to a safer place, process them, register them, profile them, and understand the type of population it is, so that we can be able to know what is the next course of action. But the team in human settlement is also here doing that work. The team from EMS is here. So we've got the teams set up by the city manager that will help us to navigate immediate requirements. But on a long term, as I said, we have to find a very drastic and radical solution to this problem.
Tabiso Boba from Eyewitness News. Mr. Mayor, I know you just came into this job, but obviously you've been in government.
I've just arrived.
I know you've been, because you've been, that's not, I can't give you that, because you've been in government for a very long time. This is not a new issue. It's something that has been happening for a lot of time in Johannesburg. What is taking so long in terms of dealing with this issue decisively? And there's a building behind you. It looks like the same kind of building that was also there. What is taking so long? What is blocking the city from actually dealing with this?
You shouldn't think that this is just a simple solution. It's very complicated. You have a lot of syndicates that are involved. You need law enforcement agencies to help you investigate. In fact, the team was telling us now that as they were coming in the early hours of the morning to extinguish the fire, there were a lot of groups coming out with high artillery from this very building, which suggests that the city alone will not have the necessary capacity to deal with this thing. But there's a strategy that the team has worked on in the last 2 months, which they're presenting to us in the next 2 weeks. On the basis of what they've done, because the strategy would have involved our guys from development planning, building control, the region here, from JMPD, from housing, from JPC. So it's a multi-disciplinary team that has worked out so that when we pounce and ensure that this thing does never come back. So allow us space, Tabiso, to us to do that. And once we are ready, we'll of course inform members of the media, and you'll begin to see changes. It also is about resources that we must mobilize through national government and other institutions like the PIC and so on and so on, to see how they can support young people. There's a principle already. We're going to take these buildings, some will expropriate immediately and hand over to young entrepreneurs to turn them into residential spaces and commercial spaces. So that decision is there. It's just a matter of the process in which you are going to implement the decision.
Just one last question. There are some foreign nationals who used to live here. Those temporary shelters, are they open to everyone, including the foreign nationals?
Remember, we are by law, we are required to keep safety of all those that are affected, and then we take them to the right places and we profile them from there. And on the basis of those that are undocumented and foreign, it's a matter that we hand over to the Department of Home Affairs because it is not our competence, but it also affects us as the city of Johannesburg.
Mayor, you said something about heavy artillery when officials arrived. Can you just expand on that? What was that? What
Yeah,
did
this
officials find?
was basically confirming that there's a lot of criminal activity that is taking place in this building, because they saw a lot of different groups going out with bags with artillery, serious guns from the building, which confirms what the councillors have been saying, that in fact this building in itself, it's a criminal center where a lot of criminality takes place, including rape, robberies of people, and they then run into the building. So it's something that law enforcement agencies have to come in and help us. In fact, we may want to speak to South African Police Service together with JNP to really bring a very strong raid into all these buildings in the inner city so that we can deal with the levels of crime and the criminality inside these buildings. Well, we are not ready to call on the SNDF. As you know, that is the competence of the president. We believe that if the resources within the South African Police Service are channeled correctly, and we can partner with them, with our JMPD, building control and inspectors, we may be able to make a dent in as far as this matter is concerned, but it should not yield any results in the next 6 months. Then we'll have to go and request a national government to intervene. But as I said earlier, multiple solutions are there. We just have to start the process of implementation.
Indeed, we are going to local government elections, Mayor. And the city of Johannesburg is forcing all political parties negative. People are no longer interested in the city, Mayor. Honestly speaking, if you can take a walk around the city, you will be shocked.
Changes will happen. We have committed to rethink the inner city. We have committed to engage on how we can change the inner city and how it looks. So the strategy, as I said, in the next 2 weeks is be presented to the mayoral committee, and on the basis of that we'll know, because we require partnerships. There's no way alone as the city can resolve this problem. It's huge. It requires private sector partnerships, because we need them to come in and invest. We also need the provincial and national government to help us. But over and above, we need the residents here to conduct themselves differently. Stop littering, look after their own spaces so that they keep them clean. So that's one thing that we want to see in the inner city. But immediately we'll be putting JMPD in as far as bylaw enforcement, which we think it will go a long way in starting to help us to address the problems and the symptoms in the inner city. Thank you.
That was the Johannesburg Mayor Dada Moreira at that media briefing on this devastating fire in Jeppestown overnight that claimed the lives of 4 people, and talking about that building where that happened, saying a lot of criminal activity taking place in that building, observing weapons going out, in and out and so on, asking the police to do more raids and saying that they are having an intention to move people to a safer place. But now we move on to the newspapers of this morning. Let's have a look at the stories that made the headlines this morning in the Sunday newspapers. And joining us this afternoon is Media Monitoring Africa's Nomshado Lubisi Nkosinkulu. Nomshado, good afternoon, and thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
Right, let's start with the first newspaper that we have here, and it's Sunday Times. An interesting story, but underneath the radar, not South African politics, but linked SA's Dubai top envoy recalled in a visa scam. And that's their main story this morning, saying a probe finds diplomats set up burglaries of his offices in a scheme to sell visas and arranged special status for a son who did not qualify. What is that story all about?
I mean, this is a story that's really looking into, the probe that found that Lebona arranged for his 45-year-old son to be issued with a UAE diplomatic visa, even though he did not obviously qualify, have a qualifying criteria to actually, obtain one. And it's looking at, the various, and I think it's really highlighting the inside processes and gaps and how these are sought out visas and sought out opportunities by many. It's obviously a continuous investigation looking at the amount of probes internally that has been found.
Right, another story on the front page of Sunday Times. You can see it there beneath the picture. Joburg firm loses 20 million rand refund in a SARS hack. That is not good news.
It's not, and I think it's another victim that has been highlighted here, looking at the SARS e-filing profiles. And, this is a Sandton-based ICT firm that lost, 20 million tax refund. So a lot of questions around the system itself, a lot of questions around, we've heard a number of victims. This is not the first time. It's not a 2024 issue. 2021 we had similar issues. So it's really going into what is really happening when it comes to cybersecurity and the hackings that we've been seeing on the rise.
Moving on to the next paper today, City Press, of course, this morning, the story of the EFF, and we're hearing more and more of what is happening or what happened there behind the scenes in terms of this divorce between Julius Malema and Floyd Shivambu. The front page headline there saying Malema's paranoia rattles the EFF. The party leader's fears of being toppled scuttled party's key role in the GNU and are stoking tensions in top ranks. So the reporting from City Press suggesting that Malema did not want his Floyd Shivambu and Lozi to have ministerial positions because that would make them too powerful. Well, I think we can't hear her anymore. We're going to go to a break and we're going to try and fix that link and continue with our newspaper review. You're watching The Week Ahead here on the SABC News Channel, and we'll see you right after this. Welcome back to The Week Ahead here on the SABC News Channel. We're busy with our newspaper review, talking to Nomshado Lubisi Nkosunkulu of Media Monitoring Africa today. And let's continue where we left off. City Press, the front page of City Press today. The story about the EFF. Malema's paranoia rattles the EFF is the headline there on the front page of City Press today. And this is all about the negotiations a couple of weeks ago for the government of national unity. What are you reading into the reporting there?
So, we saw the EFF leader initially agreed, to join the GNU, but later changed his mind. And, some say it's because of the fear of being toppled as a president of the party, particularly at the upcoming December elective conference. So, the speculation around his grounding when it comes to maintaining the position, and obviously also there's, speculation around, Shivambu's and Losi's standing and power behind being able to topple him over, using the words in the article, because of their standing and resources as government ministers. So I think it really brought about a lot of, mirror viewing into the political party itself. A lot of, speculations looking at the mere fact that Malema is obviously trying to hold on to that position, and seeing them lose, two leaders, and I think one going towards the MK party is really giving a huge shift.
Right, moving on to the next paper today, Sunday Tribune, and the front page there, it's the story that we discussed yesterday as well. MKP delivers expelled MPs to a life of poverty, and that is around the MK party changing its MPs in Parliament, and some of those MPs having resigned their permanent positions, and now suddenly they find themselves without jobs anymore, and an MP can earn a salary of more than R1 million a year.
This is particularly looking at the members who obviously approached the Western Cape High Court looking for the expulsion to be revoked, and it really extensively speaks about how, the expulsion has really impacted their lives, not only financially, but we get to read more into the physical and emotional toll that it has taken on them. And I mean, the reasoning behind them being removed has varied from, certain political party members being put in there to infiltrate the party, some speculation around they didn't adhere to instruction and so forth. So I think the big question now is, and all the eyes are really on who will be actually be sent to Parliament to fill those vacant MP positions, and what will obviously happen to the 10 members who took this case to court.
Another story on the front page of Sunday Tribune this weekend's news, Malema and co on a mission to find out what went wrong in KZN. And interestingly, Floyd Shivambu was deployed to KZN for the EFF election campaign.
I mean, yeah, I think this is also what, provoked a lot of citizens to say that if we've been sent to MK Party to infiltrate, given the mere fact of their very aggressive campaign to ensure, and I think Malema did state that they're looking to have, 1 million votes at the next, election period. So it's interesting to see how the impact of that will be, particularly in their performance within the province, and how they have to obviously re-strategize given the mere fact that Floyd has now left.
And then the next newspaper we're going to have a look at, Sunday World. The headline on Sunday World, same story, how Floyd plotted his EFF exit, and they're saying they're disillusioned Shivambu's shrewd plan for a different political path took shape earlier than intended, and Zuma then capitalized on Malema's loss. Playing politics there, and more information coming out in Sunday World.
No, definitely more. And I think to highlight that story, looking at how he moved from, EFF to join the MK Party as their party national organizer. I think everybody was interested to see what position was he going to hold. I mean, some see it as a degrade from his previous position. So speculation around reasoning of his move and the expectation to follow when it comes to his role within the party is key. I mean, the interesting story as well above that is around the three women who have been for years masquerading as the late struggle icon, Chris Hanye's daughters, for years. And I think that has been an interesting case to see that the investigation actually found that they were not related to him, and there was obviously a Home Affairs process in acquiring those documents. So I mean that's an interesting unfolding story.
Yeah, quite interesting stories on the front page of Sunday World today. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. That was Media Monitoring Africa's Nomshadu Lubisi Nkosinkulu and our newspaper, our overview of the Sunday morning newspapers. Now let's move on to this story. The national head of the Hawks, Godfrey Lebeya, says it made significant inroads in apprehending individuals involved in high-profile cases. He says these arrests targeted people involved in serious corruption, fraud and money laundering, among others. Briefing the media in Pretoria earlier, Lebeya said most of the arrests were carried out in Gauteng.
The DPCI has made significant inroads in apprehending individuals involved in high-profile cases, thus ensuring accountability and justice for the victims. These arrests targeted people involved in the serious corruption cases, fraud, money laundering, police killings, cash-in-transit robberies, illegal mining, damage to essential infrastructure, and crimes against the state. A total number of 673 suspects, representing 637 natural persons and 36 juristic persons, were secured before the various courts in the country. Of these natural persons, 489, which is 77%, are South Africans, while 148, which is 23%, are foreign nationals. Of the 673 suspects, the Serious Organized Crime Investigation secured 370 of these. The Serious Commercial Crime Investigation secured 234, while the Serious Corruption Investigation secured 69 arrests. Most of these arrests were effected in Gauteng province with 167 suspects. followed by KwaZulu-Natal province with 114, the Northwest province with 92, Mpumalanga province with 57, and the Eastern Cape province with 56 suspects. During these arrests, 68 firearms and 1,797 rounds of ammunition were seized. 3 clandestine drug laboratories were dismantled in Gauteng province with the total value of 16,179,300 rands.
Welcome back to The Week Ahead here on the SABC News Channel. Now, have you ever felt like your phone is flooded with unwanted calls from telemarketers? Or perhaps you're tired of receiving unsolicited emails and messages? You are not alone. But did you know that there is a way to take control of your personal information and to reduce the unwanted solicitations? It's called the DMASA Opt-out Service, also known as the Do Not Contact List. But how does this work? Joining me this afternoon is David Dickens. He's the CEO of the Direct Marketing Association of Southern Africa, to help us understand the DMASA opt-out service and how it can empower consumers to take control of their personal information. David, good afternoon. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Gustav, and good afternoon to your viewers. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for enlightening us today. Let me ask you, can you explain how this opt-out service works and how consumers can register for this?
Sure. Consumers that are in our sector can log on to www.dmasa.org. When they get onto the website, they will see a hand, very much like that says opt me out. When you click onto the opt me out icon, you'll go to a registration page. You register. And we have to comply with what the National Consumer Act says to us, as well as POPIA. So it is the onus of the consumer, that is you out there, to go and put your details on voluntarily. And once you're on, you won't get calls from our 300 plus members that are in the direct marketing space. So it will reduce the amount of SMSs and calls that you do not want to receive. You can get a blanket opt-out, or you can opt out from stuff like insurance, bank sector, or automotive sales, or you can just say stop all, and that will reduce your call rate.
Okay, let's take a look at some of the details. What types of marketing communications can they expect to reduce or stop by registering for this service? If you can look at the details.
So we've got sectors of the commercial field that sell products in insurance, and those are your funeral plans, your life, your house, and these are generally what we want to cover our risks as consumers. So if you opt out from that, you will get fewer calls. Also from banking sector that are offering various products. But I must caution the consumer that if you're a customer, the entities will call you as they have you listed as a customer, and you filled in the form and you've said that I would look forward to some of your lifestyle improvement products, and they'll call you. But if you tell your institution directly, do not call me, they have to hold a personal DNC that they should have. To stop calling you as well. So you'll have that external, our DNC, and they have all the businesses have an internal suppression list as well.
So are there any potential consequences for consumers who opt out, such as then missing out on information, important information?
Oh, yes, that's right, Gustav. When you get to the landing page to register, we have to ensure that we maintain your right, and your right to be in the commercial space, and your right to be in a market in South Africa, because you are South African. You should not be just kept out in the cold. So we balance that right, and we say to you, please be mindful that when you register, you are, by virtue of yourself, saying, I want to be out of that space. So you won't be getting special offers, excuse me, and stuff that you may very well need. But that then is a decision the customer needs to make.
So how then will you, as the DMASA, ensure that your member organizations actually comply with this opt-out list?
So, Gustav, we have a very our registration process has a vetting process to it. You understand that you abide by a code of data practice that we have. So all our members are under the direct marketing code. Our code is written in line with POPIA and the 8 principles to secure your safety and to secure your data, and the rules that apply with POPIA. So our members, by virtue of becoming members, have to abide by that stringent code. And the code also expresses to business how they should behave. And if they step outside of that and we get a complaint, it comes to our complaints department. We have a complaints department at the DMA. It's a free service for both business and consumer. So if you have a problem as a consumer, you can call us on our 0861 362 362 line, or email us on complaints@dmasa.org, and we will hold your hand and we will get you connected to the company that you feel keeps on giving you ads and you're not happy with them. And then we will find some way of reconciling. We will ensure they stop and they delete your data.
Okay. Can consumers then register for the opt-out service for specific types of marketing, for emails or the phone calls or mail, or is it an all or nothing option?
No, you can. There are 5 tick boxes when you get onto the DNC, the National Do Not Contact Register. So you'd say 1 is insurance. I don't want insurance. Financial services, vacation and hospitality. There's automotive, cell phones and cell phone services. And the 6th one is blanket, meaning everything. So you have a choice as a consumer.
What about these calls that are AI-driven? It's an AI person speaking to you. It's not actually a real human. How can you tell them to take you off the list?
Well, in the Act, there's a prescription as to when an AI call can be used and when it cannot. It should not be used in call centers and in the general selling when they're prospecting. So we do get a lot of complaints about AI, because they make it some companies make it very difficult for consumers. And we're picking up on that. And that's something we're working with the regulator on in finding redress. But in the manner in which we assist the client is saying, who's the business that called you? Generally, they make it very difficult. The AI doesn't take all verbal commands. I know I've had a few. And you try to opt out and it becomes extremely difficult. So yes, it is a problem, and you can call us to complain and we can assist you in getting those calls stopped. But generally there is a prompt during that voice call to say press 1 to opt out or press 2 to get a call from an agent. So I would say in the short term, opt out and listen to the cue to opt out. And if you're still aggrieved, call us and we will track them down and work with you on getting your details out.
How many consumers have registered for your opt-out service? Do you have numbers there?
Yes, we do. Actually, we just did a report with the Sowetan and another with Cape Talk. Our numbers are just over 500,000, just over 500,000 that we pulled last week. And it's growing. So that's the kind of growth we are seeing and the numbers we have at current.
And what's the most common reason that you see from the consumers, their reason for opting out?
Well, the first question we ask is that, the consumer says, is where did they get my details from? I think everybody does that.
Yes.
So we sit with them and we try to understand. If Hollard called you, and here's an example, I'm not citing Hollard as a problem. They're actually a good institution and run well. But if someone says Hollard called me and I did not give them my details, we would call Hollard. And I tell you, the big institutions respond very quickly. And they would say, no, I found Mr. Mazibuko. He has car insurance and we're calling him to offer him a better deal. And then Mr. Mazibuko 3 years ago forgets that he put his name, that he's with Holland, and sometimes does have an issue with it and then remembers and says, oh, okay. But in the instant that he did not, then we would say to the institution, Mr. Mazibuko would like you to tell him what details do you have of his. And that's when we use PAIA, which is another piece of legislation. PAIA allows the consumer to practice that right. The consumer is always the owner of their own details. So you say under PAIA, what do you have on me? My name, my cell phone. Okay, delete it. And they must honor that request. And if it comes up again, and Mr. Mazibuko comes back to us, we will escalate it to the information regulator, which we have close ties to. And they will then investigate and see whether there's a serious infringement or a warning that should be given.
Can I quickly ask you about this? Can consumers register on behalf of a deceased loved one or someone who's incapacitated, who can't get rid of this by themselves?
You know, it's difficult for me to say that because constitutionally, if something is given to you and is in your interest, there's two ways of answering it. You can stand proxy for someone who's given you the legal authority to do so. That's a simple way. But we would encourage each consumer to take care of their own interest and do it themselves. But you can have a proxy to assist you, especially if, for instance, you have a granny that's not as technical, then you can help your granny out. She's given you her authority to do so and act on her behalf in her interest.
And then, is there anything that it's impossible to opt out of?
No, there should not be anything that is impossible. Not at all. Even if you're a customer of a bank, you can still call your bank and say, I don't want any calls. And your bank will put you on a suppression list and they will not call you. Nobody can supersede your right. So no, there should not be any instance. The only instance, though, state departments do have exemptions. For instance, SARS and the SIU, they would have a right to get your data in order to act in their prescribed manner in solving a problem or tracking down someone. So there are times where there's an exclusion to the act, but in most instances, as a consumer, you can and should get off a consumer list.
You mentioned this earlier. Where do they get your details? Is there any way to control that process before that call even happens?
You know, we try. I go on 2 national tours and I go talking to members as well as the public in Durban, Cape Town and Joburg. So where do they get your details from? And I think consumers must be mindful here. When you see something advertised as free, or they say, here's a free app, here's a free game, go online and play a free game. Nothing online is free. They're going to ask for an exchange. And again, let me give you an example of Facebook. Facebook is an online app. And as an example, you use Facebook to talk to your granny in Eastern Cape or your uncle in Umtata, or you want to talk to someone in Cape Town. So you have the app and it gives you that privilege. But it asks you something else. It says to use Facebook, if you look at the T's and C's and the contract, Facebook is going to take your phone contacts. Facebook is going to watch all your messaging. And when you say, I like shoes, or you go onto Facebook, the business corner, and you click on fridges and stoves and you wonder, why am I getting a lot of ads? You've given your account to them and you've given your data to them in exchange for their services. Like most things online, the consumer must be aware of the terms and conditions they are signing in to use certain free applications. Even when you're opening up, for example, a Virgin Active account or a Truits account, and you're filling in that long page, at the bottom it says, we'll call you to give you introductory offers and specials. And if you don't say no, thank you, you would be then opted in to their marketing. So consumer awareness as to what you're opting into, what you think is free is not generally free on the internet. It's something you are going to be the currency. Your details are the money that drives that machine because they use that detail to sell products.
Yeah. No such thing as a free lunch. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon, David Dickens. He's the CEO of the Direct Marketing Association of Southern Africa. This is The Week Ahead, and we'll see you right after this. Welcome back. The work to bridge the divide in South Africa's society using activism and law is not yet done. This as the Sinako We Can movement colloquium, unpacking this task 30 years into democracy, shows that challenges remain in fully realizing the Constitution's promises to the people. SABC News senior reporter Kani Mapanga filed this report.
Cases which exemplify true social justice lawyering, which bridges the divide in South Africa, are many, such as South Africa's recent case at the ICJ, which sought to stop Israel's bombardment of Gaza. However, 30 years into South Africa's democracy, how far has activism through the law been able to bridge the divide in our society? Advocate for human rights and one of the lead members of South Africa's legal team to The Hague, Advocate Adila Hassim, SC, looked back at the country's landmark cases and the kind of change it has informed to unpack this, such as the Treatment Action Campaign's case, which bridged the gap in access to health care, specifically antiretroviral medication.
Fast forward to where we are now, and we have more than 5 million, in fact, close to 6 million people, not women, all adults, on antiretroviral treatment. This is a case in which you can actually measure the impact it's had. If you just measure one aspect of it, and that is access to medicines. It was a phenomenal achievement.
Despite these achievements, the gaps remain in South Africa's society 30 years into democracy, creating even more demand of the need for activism and the law to intervene in these shortcomings and in turn uphold the values of the Constitution.
It's not all lost, and I think if we were to approach the law thinking that one case can change the world, then you need to revise your thinking on it. The law, unfortunately, is far too conservative for that. It has a role to play. It has a very important role to play. We have a role to play in supporting those who are fighting for social justice. But the case is not really about the law or about the lawyers who are seen in the courtroom bringing the cases. It's about what's happening behind the lawyers who are bringing the cases.
The room full of women attendees, as we prepare to draw the curtains on Women's Month, were encouraged to play their part in shaping social justice and using the law as an instrument for constructive change in the democratic dispensation. Kani Mapanga, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Right, the Eastern Cape Parks and Tourism Agency says it continues to make strides in nature conservation and protecting the environment. The use of cutting-edge technology and more boots on the ground has drastically decreased the number of poaching cases at nature reserves managed by the agency across the province. The agency has honoured the men and women who risk their lives preserving and protecting the biodiversity of this province. Here is SABC News reporter Lwando Nomoy with more.
A moment to reflect and celebrate the efforts of protecting the natural heritage of the province. A 65 million rand investment from the World Bank has bolstered conservation efforts in the sector. Last year, over 400 rhinos were poached across the country, with only 6 cases reported at nature reserves under the Eastern Cape Parks and Tourism Agency.
The impact of technology in terms of the work that we do, and the investment that has been made in terms of the partners that we're able to have from a grant funding point of view. We always make this point that for you to be able to attract partnerships, especially private sector or donor funding, there must be one evidence that you're able to manage your affairs in order. And the audit outcomes of the work that we do from the Auditor General of the country provides us a good platform to be able to mobilize resources to attract people to want to do work with us.
Through advanced training, an additional 22 field rangers have been employed by the agency, with others honored for their commitment in the sector.
What inspired me to be a ranger, to join the agency, is to, I love the most to protect the natural things, because as we all know that in our environment everything works together. So it's a beautiful thing to protect that.
The sooner I got in this field, I developed a passion for what I was doing. So it was more of enjoying it than working.
I have dedicated myself a lot doing my job and obeying my instructions from my supervisors.
The agency also manages the largest population of black rhinos in the country. Lwando Nomoy, SABC News, at the Thomas Baines Nature Reserve.
Spring might still be a few weeks away officially, but the Namaqualand in the Northern Cape has already transformed into a spectacular display of colours. The world-famous Namaqualand daisies are in full bloom, attracting tourists from all over the world.
Mother Nature donning her vivid robes. Good rains earlier this year have made the flower season something to behold.
It's spectacular. It's a miracle, to say the least. And one should really experience a spectacle like this, not once but more than once in your lifetime. Otherwise you miss a lot.
Even locals are impressed with this year's yield.
It's more beautiful like last year. Actually, my problem is I'm allergic to flowers. I can say long by flowers, but it's more beautiful like last year.
Yes, it's more beautiful than other years. This year is more, and maybe more time is coming. That is maybe next month it will be more than this one. But it's look nice. It will come more here.
Residents say the flower season will peak towards mid-September before declining. Ulrich Hendricks, SABC News, Namaqualand, Northern Cape.
Thank you for watching The Week Ahead here on the SABC News channel. We'll see you again at the top of the hour. Headlines this hour: 14 areas in the Nelson Mandela Bay municipality are faced with an estimated 2-week power outage after strong winds knocked over a transmission tower on Friday. School nutrition service providers in KwaZulu-Natal have warned that the delivery of food to millions of school children might be interrupted from tomorrow as service providers haven't been paid. And Israel has carried out what it called preemptive airstrikes in Lebanon. Hezbollah then fired a barrage of rockets towards Israel. Thank you for spending your Sunday afternoon with us. This is The Week Ahead. We are broadcasting live from our Johannesburg studio, and we'd like to invite you to participate in our conversations. Give us a call here on our studio number. It's 011 714 0680, 0681 or 0682. I'm Gustav Reden. Good afternoon and welcome. 14 areas in the Nelson Mandela Bay municipality are faced with an estimated 2-week power outage. This after a transmission tower collapsed on the western side of Nkabega on Friday, causing several parts of the metropolitan area to be without power. This has not only affected residential areas, but businesses and students alike.
The recent gale force winds in the Nelson Mandela Bay municipality played a part in the collapsing of the transmission tower. The municipality has also identified aging infrastructure as part of the reason for the collapse. A local fuel station has offered charging outlets to the public, where people are now queuing to get their devices charged. However, this is frustrating to residents as well as the businesses. The municipality is working on reducing the duration of power outage.
These 14 days then triggered other alternatives that we embarked on, which then calls for other mitigation plans, like moving other transformers from different places in an effort to actually reduce the 14 days, because we do feel that the 14 days is too long. It's going to impact the customers. So that moving of the transformer is one alternative. Is going to help us. The second alternative is we have reached out to ESCOM. ESCOM, as we speak, they are currently on site to assist us with their resources.
We have teams on the ground. We've activated our joint operations center here in the Southern Fire Station, so that we have all decks on hand. The EDs of all the relevant departments are on hand to attend to this problem. It's 4 wards that's affected, wards 1, 2, 3 and 4, and there's 14 suburbs as well that's affected by this.
The municipality says the affected wards will experience load reduction as they try to restore the power.
School nutrition service providers in KwaZulu-Natal have warned that the delivery of much-needed food to millions of school children might be interrupted from tomorrow. This follows a statement by the National School Nutrition Programme Service Providers Association in this province, in which it says food provision could be jeopardized because the service providers haven't been paid. Now, last month, the association staged a picket outside the Department of Education's offices in Pietermaritzburg to raise their issues over payment.
Service providers say they are battling to continue providing food to the schools they supply, as they haven't received payment from the Department of Education. Some say they are owed payment from last month, while others say their payments are in arrears from May. The organization says many service providers are battling with high debts, and some face having their properties repossessed.
We've been feeding continuously, irrespective of the challenges that we've been facing of the non-payments. We've been feeding, doing everything that we can, going to the loan sharks, making loans, overdraft, credit card, you name them. We've been doing the best we can, but we have exhausted all our avenues now. We have come to a situation whereby we can't anymore.
The association is accusing the department of dragging its heels and pleaded for payments to be speeded up.
It's a grand national program. As we are speaking, we have fed July, feeding August and September. The batch of paying July, August and September was paid by national to provincial treasury a long time ago. So we shouldn't have issues, let alone June, May and April and the previous, that it should have been sorted a long time ago.
The department conceded that there has been delays with payment, but says the delays were also due to incorrect claims.
We are intervening as a province as we speak. There are measures that we have put in place to process those payments. Some will receive their monies early next week and graduating into late next week. But it's a matter that is being attended to, and we are in talks with the association. So we don't foresee a situation where there's not going to be provision of nutrition to our learners come next week.
Last year, millions of children in the province went without food for weeks after a single service provider, which was awarded the tender, failed to meet its obligations. This was a deviation from the national system, where local providers from communities supply fresh food and groceries to school kitchens. But that tender was scrapped and the program reverted to the old system. I'm Ntlagane Phamokwaza for SABC News in Durban.
With growing concerns about a lack of quality healthcare for women in the country, a health expert from the Northwest University says a more individualized approach is needed to achieve quality healthcare access. Dr. Rorisang Machelo says the existing approach not only leads to diseases such as cancer being diagnosed too late, but also encourages women to self-diagnose. Some women who use public clinics in Mahikeng say they are mindful that they must have their annual checkups, while others are calling for the clinics to operate 24 hours a day. They say this will make it easier for them to access healthcare. SABC News reporter Tebogo Pakedi compiled this report.
According to the Human Rights Commission, healthcare services are largely under-resourced. Registered misgivings range from shortage of personnel, availability of medication to long queues, impacting on the ability to deliver adequate care to patients, particularly those in rural areas. A health expert from the Northwest University says the current approach at public clinics needs to be changed.
The approach that is being used in the clinics in Northwest currently is what we call a supermarket approach. More of everybody comes and we treat everybody everywhere with the symptoms that we have. It's a generalist approach. It's not really helpful because that's where it creates lots of gaps. For a youth, you need full youth services that are really dedicated to youth. You need fully dedicated services that are dedicated to women.
Dr. Machailo says this often leads to late diagnosis.
If you look at cancer, for instance, it's not something that will develop now and be treated now. It must have developed over time. The problem with cancer is that when it starts, it doesn't have symptoms. So the symptoms are not so obvious. So that's why it's important for all of them every woman to at least go for screening and understand where the screening services are. Currently, when you go to the clinics, they look into what symptoms do you have and then we treat the symptoms. But there's no basic screening facilities. That's where I can go. It's Women's Month. Those pap smear services should be available almost in every healthcare facility.
According to the Cancer Association of South Africa, breast and cervical cancer are the top 2 diagnosed cancers among women. Some women in the province are cognizant of the importance of screenings.
I know the importance of doing services like pap smear, and I make sure that at least once a year I do pap smear. So I get the result on time. I didn't get any challenge since then. And other services like HIV testing, STIs, I do.
I am happy that they are helping us here at the clinic. I did pap smear in June last year and got the results.
It's very important to do tests as women so that we know about our health. I went to the clinic to do a mammogram to check if I have breast cancer, and I also did a pap smear in April.
Others, however, are asking for clinics to run 24-hour operations to provide adequate health care.
If they can help us by midwifery services at our clinics, we are not able to give birth there, but have to travel as far as the provincial hospital. Most of us do not have money to go there.
We'd be happy if there can be night shifts. It becomes a problem if we are unable to go to the clinic at night. We have to travel. I wish my local clinic can work for 24 hours a day, even on weekends. That way we don't have to travel far in case of emergency.
Meanwhile, Dr. Machelo has advised against self-diagnosis, which she says is often influenced by inadequate health care at different clinics.
It's also advisable for the people and the public to at least go out there, go to the clinic, seek information, ask more questions. Lack of information is what is leading people to try and get information for myself, and that's why we end up in Google. If my heart beats like this, it means I must go check what can be the problem. But then if you go onto Google, Google may give you something that is not even related to what is actually happening within you, because you're only going to get to look for those palpitations that you get, but you don't look into what other symptoms are there.
Dr. Machelo encourages the use of toll-free call centers, which she argues will improve access to health care. Deborah Pakedi, SABC News, Mahigeng.
Northwest Premier Lazarus Mokhosi is facing a tough choice when implementing the ANC's decision on gender equity in his Provincial Executive Council. He will have to drop one male member in order to achieve a 60-40 ratio of MECs. Now, the ANC's National Executive Committee has resolved that all provincial governments should have more women than men as MECs, and that's especially in provinces where the Premier is male. But Mokhosi appointed 5 male MECs and 5 women to his executive. This resulted in the ANC Women's League raising the matter with the NEC.
Barely 2 months since the announcement of the Provincial Executive Council, changes are already on the cards. According to the ANC in the province, changes are imminent to comply with the 60-40 ratio of women representation in the provincial executive. This after the national leadership of the party instructed the provincial structure to rectify gender disparity in the Provincial Executive Council. The provincial ANC says it will implement the decision.
We can confirm that we need to implement that decision, and we will be implementing it very soon. But we've requested the African National Congress that we, given just as an opportunity to finalize stabilizing government, because we can't just willy-nilly do it while we just established EXCO just 1.5 months ago. So we will definitely implement that decision.
The Northwest Provincial Government says it's only a matter of time before the changes are made.
We are all deployed by the African National Congress, including myself. We are in an ongoing discussion on ensuring that we comply to that provisioning of a policy of the African National Congress. And therefore it will be done. We'll make an announcement very soon.
The province is made up of 4 regions, namely Bojanala, Ngaka Mudiri Mulema, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, and Dr. Ruth Sukhomutsi Mumpati. And according to a political analyst from Northwest University, Mokhosi will have to consider geographical representation of these regions when he effects changes.
I mean, if you look at the current composition, you look at Bojanala, you look at KK, you look at the third one would be RSM. They all have 2 members of within the executive council. Whereas when you look at KK, for instance, it has 4 of them. So that would say that maybe they need to be looking into that representation to say that which one needs to be looked into, especially because. This representation needs to be aligned, needs to have an alignment with all the 4 regions of the province.
The choice of who will be axed will be between MECs Khawakhe Molapisi, Sello Lehare, Madoda Sambata, Colin Maine, and Vessels Morweng when changes are implemented. Thabiso Moss, SABC News, Mahikeng.
The leader of the Umkhonto weSizwe party in Parliament, Dr. John Hlophe, believes that his removal as the judge should not prevent him from being a member of the National Assembly or participating in its activities. Now, Hlophe claims that the DA is attempting to overturn a constitutional process in which they lost in the National Assembly after he was designated to serve on the Judicial Services Commission. In an affidavit, Hlophe argues that the DA has failed to demonstrate a credible threat to his rights through his designation. These arguments are presented in documents filed before the Western Cape High Court, where the DA and Corruption Watch are challenging Hlophe's designation to the Commission. The applicants are seeking an urgent interdict pending a review application of Hlophe's designation. The JSC is scheduled to convene with its full complement in October to interview candidates and make recommendations for appointment to President Cyril Ramaphosa. The former personal assistant to ex-Free State Premier Ace Magashule has filed an urgent application in the Free State High Court. 37-year-old Morowadi Cholota wants an order declaring her arrest unlawful and unconstitutional. She contends that the 255 million rand asbestos corruption and fraud charges against her emanate from her refusal to comply with the state's demands for specific testimony on the case. The urgent matter is scheduled to be heard on Monday. Welcome back. Pre-trial proceedings in former President Jacob Zuma's arms deal case are scheduled to resume at the Pietermaritzburg High Court on Thursday. Now, Zuma made multiple unsuccessful attempts to dismiss advocate Billy Downer, the prosecutor in his criminal case, before this attempt. Now, this same court had previously dismissed Zuma's private prosecution of journalist Karen Maughan and Billy Downer in June of 2023. Downer was charged by Zuma with violating the National Prosecuting Authority Act. He stated that Downer had given Maughan access to a letter from a military physician that was submitted by the former president's attorneys during the trial in August 2021, as well as sensitive medical information. Now, Ian Ellis is a legal expert and he's joining us now to break all of this down. Ian, good afternoon and thank you so much for being with us.
Good afternoon, Gustav, and good afternoon to the viewers as well.
Take us through some of the possible outcomes as this case goes back to court in Pietermaritzburg now this coming week.
Okay. Now, one's got to go ahead and take a look. Anything involving Jacob Zuma, there's going to be a double issue, and that is the political aspects as the legal aspects, and where the two actually overlap is where the interesting point is going to come. Obviously, he's got his own political agenda with the new MK party. In particular, I believe he's going to use a lot of that strength that the party has within the province to also try and put pressure on the National Prosecuting Authority to try and see if they're going to look at withdrawing the charges against him. Obviously, that's going to be his first main ploy. I don't believe that he's going to just lie back and allow for the trial to proceed and just to start running everything again. I believe he's still got some aces up his sleeves to try and put pressure onto the charges being withdrawn. And obviously, he's gone after Billy Downer. He's gone after the private prosecution, Karen Maughan, as well. I believe it's only a matter of time before he starts putting more pressure on the judge again to try and recuse himself, and ultimately to put pressure on the NPA to go ahead and withdraw the charges from their side, if anything. So I think he's still going to try and further his representation and try and complain that there hasn't been proper disclosure and other adequate information divulged in the prosecution. So I still see there's going to be a fight going on to basically get to try and protract this matter as long as possible.
Okay, let's take a look at one of the details here. The Supreme Court of Appeal denied Zuma's request for permission to challenge the decision of the High Court in December last year, and he submitted a request for that decision to be re-examined to the SCA president in January. This request was also then denied. Is he grasping at straws, or are we likely to see developments now?
Oh, he's grasping at straws completely, and that's why I say it's not done until it's done. I can foresee any judgment or any ruling that is made is going to go ahead and be taken on an appeal and further appeal. That's how he's done it, and that's the Stalingrad approach that he's taken throughout the proceedings. And obviously, he has got the firepower who he has been using, and with John Schlaupe, with his experience, as well as Darlene Porter as well, playing a significant role in it. He is going to go ahead and challenge each and every word that is going to be said. I believe that the states still have an uphill battle before they're going to get him into a trial. He will take every opportunity and every avenue he can to avoid the trial succeeding.
So the state's case against Zuma was declared trial ready 3 years ago, but it has been hit by various delays, then including the former president's ill health, of course, and this repeated effort to force the removal of Billy Downer, amongst others. This case, of course, goes back to the 1990s. So when you look at all the delays that have plagued this, do you have any hope that the preliminary issues can be ironed out soon?
I'd like to be the quiet optimist, but I'm also a defense attorney. So realistically, I know exactly what the game strategy is going to be, because you're dealing with facts that are 20 plus years old. Some cases, in certain aspects, may even be close to 50 years old. They're going to struggle to get witnesses. They're going to struggle to keep the verification of that evidence. Who knows what the quality of the evidence still is, what witnesses are still alive. So they're going to try and string it out as long as possible. And I do believe that they're going to exploit the ill health aspect. Remember, he's not sick enough to want to be president again, but he's going to be sick enough to have to stand trial, which I see is going to happen still on a few more occasions.
So the former president will stand trial 20 years after he was first charged with this arms deal corruption. In your view, how has this case been handled, basically? What does this say about the pace in which the law unfolds in South Africa? Or is it just because this is Jacob Zuma?
Let me put it to you this way. Traditionally, the wheels of justice in South Africa are moving exceptionally slow. But however, if he was the man in the street, this would have been completed already. So he has been the person who he is, and especially being our former president, has gone ahead and opened up a lot more avenues and slowed down the prosecution considerably. The fact is that 20 years later, if not more than 20 years in certain of these, because certain of the allegations still stem from the 90s, it says a lot of the preferential treatment that he has received, because it also appeared that there were no investigations for the better part of 10 to 15 years in the matter.
Okay, let's talk about dates and your experience and how the courts operate, because according to the pre-trial minutes prepared by the state, Zuma's trial will take place then from the 14th of April to the 20th of June 2025, and then from the 21st of July to the 19th of September. What do you make of the judge president's reserving 2 dates in the second and the third term for this trial to proceed?
I'll tell you that's exactly for that purpose, because number one, you're going to need a permanent appointed judge to be able to sit on it. So obviously taking into court roles where they're going to be able to, and the element of flexibility. Unfortunately, and this is a problem in all the provinces, that there are a shortage of judges, and especially a shortage of full-time allocated judges. So that is the expected time of how long it's going to take to run it. It's not just from an either-or scenario. I understand it that is why they're running it from the one period in the second term, so that the judges then got the holiday break and then resuming the following term, and it's going to run for the duration of 2 whole terms. The veracity of the evidence and the sheer volume of the evidence, I think, is one of the underlying factors for such a long trial date to be actually allocated. Well, and if you look at it, technically, we've had a lot of high-profile matters as of late in the various courts in South Africa, and all of those have been taking extensive periods of time, and probably more so because it is a public figure of Zuma's reputation.
So do you think the National Prosecuting Authority, the Department of Justice, do you think that they are prepared, specifically in this case now, for Stalingrad tactics coming their way?
For the purposes of justice to be seen being done, hopefully they are, and hopefully they've got the best possible team at work on the matter, but I don't think they're going to get it easy. I don't think Zuma's just going to back off quite so easily, and they are going to find something to take exception to and to try and force for a further postponement and to kick the matter out of trial. The fact that it's set down for 2 full terms in its own right shows a lot, and he's going to use it as an opportunity that if he can get anything marginally postponed or delayed, it basically prevents the matter from being run for another year.
If they are able to get the judge to recuse himself, what is the process from there, the legal process?
Well, at that stage, if the judge recuses himself, they're going to have to find another judge. Luckily, the trial hasn't begun, but I can see them trying in a way to almost bypass his rulings and try and introduce certain aspects from the starting point. It's not possible in a lot of aspects because that would be subject to the appeals that have already been dismissed. But I can see that they will try and use that opportunity to get another second bite at the cherry to get certain of the rulings that are not in Zuma's favour reversed.
Ian, thank you so much for your insight this afternoon. That's the legal expert Ian Ellis talking to us about Jacob Zuma returning to court in Pietermaritzburg this week. You're watching The Week Ahead here on the SABC News channel, and we'll be back right after this. Welcome back. South Africa is facing a devastating drug addiction epidemic among its youth. The South African National Council of Alcoholism and Drug Dependence says that the number of young people struggling with substance abuse has now reached alarming levels. Nyaupe and crystal meth are some of the most commonly abused substances. Although some rehabilitation centres are assisting young people to get rid of their addiction, Sanka says more is needed to address the scale and complexity of the crisis. Now, our SABC News reporter Kokecho Motau and video journalist Llewellyn Carstens have compiled this report.
A growing concern is sweeping across the country as drug addiction rates among the youth continue to soar. The most commonly abused substances include nyaupe, which is a potent cocktail of heroin and other chemicals and is highly addictive. Crystal meth, also known as stick, is also among the most abused drug. Garina Foundation Rehabilitation Center in Polokwane has emerged as a vital lifeline for those struggling with substance abuse. The center offers a comprehensive and supportive environment for individuals to overcome their addictions and rebuild their lives. Some of the patients who are new in the center say they need to confront their addiction and get reintegrated into society.
I started using drugs after separating from my child's mother and misusing resources provided by my mother. She had given me a car to simplify my life, but I used it for unintended purposes. My mother, despite not having formal qualification, worked hard to provide for me. I regret misusing her property and resources, which were meant to support me, because she had worked hard to acquire them.
Got misuse and then gabaga promoter the drugs kamotugole baby mama.
Halagidula mama kaine. Then papa gadula jubek. After my parents separated, my father moved in with his new partner and started a new family. I felt abandoned and unloved by my biological father, who prioritized supporting his stepchildren over me. This, combined with the stress of my mother's unemployment, led me to seek solace in drug abuse as a way to cope with the emotional pain and neglect I felt.
Some of the success stories from this center are a testament to its effectiveness. The outgoing patients say the center helped them to overcome their addiction and find purpose in life again.
This place has been a turning point for me. I'm 42 years now, and I've made tremendous progress since coming here. I started smoking at the age of 16 and struggled with addiction for years. Despite previous attempts to quit, I relapsed many times in Johannesburg. I've gone from being estranged from my family to having a loving relationship with them again. They are thrilled with my progress, and I'm motivated to continue changing my life for the sake of my children. I'm determined to keep moving forward.
Rehab has been a transformative experience, helping me to heal and develop a deeper appreciation for my mother. Previously, I struggled with feelings of abandonment stemming from my father's absence, especially since my siblings all had involved fathers in their lives. This experience has helped me work through those emotions and develop a more positive relationship with my parents.
The founder of the Garena Foundation Rehabilitation Center says government should fund rehabilitation centers so that they can help more young people.
My journey began as a humble street vendor, but witnessing the devastating impact of drug abuse on young people's life compelled me to take action. I founded a rehab center to address this critical need, driven by the realization that our community was being neglected, with no support, sponsors or funding to turn to. Despite the challenges, I remain committed to making a difference. We are requesting the government to intervene so that we can continue to help these young people, since most of them cannot afford to pay.
When I wake up early in the morning almost every day, to make sure
South African National Council on Alcoholism and Drug Dependence says it has been offering a variety of services for the prevention and treatment of substance use disorders. Sanka says government and the public should participate in curbing the scourge of drug abuse.
Sanka is registered as an NPO, is registered as an outpatient rehabilitation treatment center. So what normally it does, we are doing the prevention programs in all the provinces, because we are funded by Department of Social Development to make sure that we do the prevention, the treatment of substance abuse, and then aftercare in all the district in the province. So we have different kind of programs that are actually aiming into making sure that we raise awareness in terms of substance use disorders in all the communities, in the schools, in churches, whatever way the community they will want to actually to see us doing the or rendering our services in all the districts. Yes, we are limited in terms of resources and all that, but we are doing our level best as NGO, but also with the support from Department of Social Development to see that we are addressing the issue of substance abuse.
With the drug abuse situation continue to unfold, the future of South African youth hangs in the balance, and immediate action is necessary to prevent a generation from being lost to the grip of addiction. Amkoke Jomota, SABC News, Polokwane.
Accessibility to dignified ablution facilities is still a major challenge facing people living with disabilities in the remote rural areas of the Eastern Cape. One of them is 52-year-old wheelchair-bound Vincent Lutu from Willowvale. Now, Lutu is using a bucket to relieve himself as his home toilet is inaccessible for someone living with disability. This is despite Lutu raising concerns during the construction phase of the toilets. Our SABC News reporter, Nomzwanele Ngoma, filed this report.
Vincent Lutu was diagnosed with polio disease at the age of 2. He has been using a wheelchair from a very young age. Now 52 years old, his mother still looks after him. He has to crawl to nearby bushes to relieve himself. But during this inclement weather, he has no choice but to use a bucket, which is frustrating for him.
This toilet is small. They cannot do a ramp on it because my wheelchair won't fit. I wish they can enlarge it and put a ramp on it so that I can be able to use it on my own. It is enough now. My mother cannot be cleaning my feces at this age. It is painful when it's raining.
Lutu says during the construction phase, he requested the toilet to be designed according to his need, but says this was ignored.
In isokolayo kakhulu njengale toilet le toilet ziphiwa ngugovernment.
We struggle here. The government built toilets for people, but when I requested for the one that I can use, that did not happen. There were allegations that the government needs to count and get a total number of people living with disabilities in the area, but no help has been given.
His family is pleading that the toilet be revamped to be able to accommodate Lutu.
The
problem here is that he's unable to go to the toilet. He goes to a nearby bush that is closer to the kraal. When it is raining, he uses a bucket, and it is my duty to throw that away and clean the bucket. He asked for the accessible toilet, but nothing is being done for him. I still clean after him.
The municipality says it was not aware of Lutu's plight.
And the municipality has not been aware of his case. When the municipality rolls out its sanitation projects, the ward councillors provide the names of households which require sanitation facilities for the disabled. Now, suitable toilets are then constructed for those households, and now that we are aware of his case, action will be taken to ensure that his needs are met.
The municipality did not give a time frame of when it will be able to assist Lutu. Nomzwanele Mngoma, SABC News in the Eastern Cape.
Following the recent release of second quarter employment data, which showed a decline in the employment of domestic help, the United Domestic Workers of South Africa says their members are leaving their jobs without a cent. The union says many employers fail to register domestic workers for the Unemployment Insurance Fund. It says that the domestic worker sector remains the most exploited.
Eva Zoider is among 83% of domestic workers who are sole providers for their families. According to the 2024 7th Annual Sweep South report, 83% of domestic workers in the country are breadwinners. The mother of two says she lost her job of 8 years 2 years ago and has been struggling since then. Zoider says she is unable to find work and currently lives from hand to mouth.
Life
is difficult now because I'm no longer working. I'm just sitting at home with no food. Many jobs now are looking for standard 10. So with us, if you don't have that, you can't get a job easily. You now have to ask people to do their laundry and iron for them so you can have some money.
O tshwanetse ela gore o kope batho go tlhatswa o dire dikropo mo bathong ba bantsho gore ke kopa go tlhatswetsa gore a gone sengwenyana ha batla gore o trike o mo trikele yalo.
Zoider is not the only one feeling the pinch. Geraldine Brandt, who was a domestic worker for 4 years, says finding a permanent job in the sector has become difficult.
It's very sad because why sometimes you see that child needs something and you can't provide it for him. So you try your best, but if you can't, your hand is off.
According to Stats SA, the decline in the employment of domestic workers is due to private households not being able to pay wages. These women say it has become difficult to find any jobs. They say many employers have cut their days and only hire them for a day or two in a week. The union says this trend has been a concern post-COVID-19.
It's very unfortunate that when the economy hit the whole country and the domestic workers are always at the receiving ends. But it's true, the work sector itself is always needed. There are still many domestic workers who are not registered with the UIF. But as a union, if our member, if he's dismissed, even if that member was not registered with the UIF, we make sure when we are at the CCMA that we mention that the employer never registered Pinky with the UIF. And it will be written on that CCMA settlement that the employer must go to Labour Department to pay for that UIF. So our members do benefit from UIF, even if they are not registered. That's how we intervene as a union.
The union says it's working towards asking the Department of Labour to assist with skills development to empower domestic workers. This is to help them survive when they lose their jobs. Karabo Siyoko, SABC News, Kimberley.
Welcome back. Now, a new business development and career centre has opened its doors in Dunoon in the Western Cape. Dubbed the Silolo Foundation Business and Career Centre, it aims to address pressing challenges such as financial management, lack of training and mentorship, and insufficient funding. The centre will focus on skills training, development initiatives for the youth and budding entrepreneurs, as well as provide access to advanced technology. To tell us more, we are now joined by Luvoyo Rani, who is the CEO and the founder of the Silolo Foundation. Good afternoon and thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate for inviting us as Silolo Foundation to be part of the program.
Good. Now tell us about how you identified the gap basically to build this development centre. What was your thought process there?
So, this work, I've been doing this work for the last 20 years. But last 2 years, I started Silolo Foundation, and then I work now with the Astron Energy Development Fund now, in order for the community of Dunoon have access now to the walk-in center, where they will be able to train the teacher skills, where we're also training the entrepreneurs in the community, so that they can able to create their own businesses and also finding the jobs that becomes a problem.
Okay, so tell us, what kind of resources will the centre now be providing and who will it cater to?
So the centre will be solely catered for the community of Dunoon. So it's in Dunoon, people for Dunoon. They are going to be supported for the centre, and it's going to be focusing on the youth, where the youth from Dunoon that are able to come in, and also be focusing on the small businesses that are in the Dunoon now, that are residing and are looking for opportunities. So how does the centre look like? It's just like the business centre, which is the internet cafe. There's a coffee shop there. There's a space for the entrepreneur. There's a bookshop that is there. And then there's a conference room. There's a training room. There's a boardroom. So it becomes a space where even community can come in and use the space for themselves in order to make sure that they are able to have the infrastructure in closer to where they stay.
How important is it to address these digital and economic disparities in under-resourced communities such as that, also in townships, rural areas?
It's key. It's very, very important. To make sure that people in the township have access to the great facility. They can walk in. They can get basic training on the digital skills, on the AI skills, on the on the cyber securities, on the job readiness program that they can able to find employment, but also on the entrepreneur where they get mentorship, they get support, they get funding, and then they can connection with opportunities. That's what the township and rural areas need.
Okay, so 600 unemployed youth will be enrolled, we heard, in a free digital skills training program, equipping them then with the tools that they need for work readiness and for their career growth. Do you also somehow assist them with finding job placements after that?
Yes, that's where the most important things now. So what we'll do now, during the week for the youth, they will come in Monday to Friday. So the weekend, we're also working with the TVET colleges, with the employees, with kind of like a career guidance, and also with a way of, to kind of push them in the career path now, so that we could, connect them with employment. We'll bring the employees to come in. We'll bring the partners who are able to come in. So we can't do this thing alone. We have to kind of build an ecosystem for Dunoon to make sure that every partner assists the student. Now, some of students, they will find employment. Some of students, they will start the businesses. Some of students, they will study further.
So tell us about the feedback that you're getting at this stage. Are the students there and the youth, are they positive about this development?
It is. We had, last 2 weeks applications, there were about 397 applications. Because of now, we're taking 100. So the 600 is going to be over 3 years. So we could see the youth,
Okay, it seems that we have a problem there with his line. Is he back? He's struggling. The connection is struggling there, but we're trying to speak to Luvuyo Rani. He's the CEO and the founder of the Silulo Foundation. Luvuyo, you're back. You're still there. You're still there. You can hear us now. You were talking to us about this. Tell us quickly, how can those who want to take part get in touch?
So, so anyone who's in Danone, they can just walk in to the Roma Center where we are at the top floor. They will see Silulo, and they will able to kind of like register. We might not be able to take now. We can take what we already have taken now. Monday, tomorrow, we're starting with with the program. So, but every 6 months, we've got intake of the students that are going to take it, even for smaller businesses now. So they can walk in and use the center. The center is meant for the community of Danone.
Thank you so much for joining us here this afternoon. That was Luvuyo Rani. He's the CEO and the founder of the Silulo Foundation. Right now, the community of Atteridgeville, Extension 19, west of Pretoria, has called on government to intervene in the long-standing unhygienic and deplorable conditions in this area. Residents allege that they've been abandoned by the Tshwane Metro municipality.
A community pleading for help. For people like Howard Chuma, the hope of a better life is but a pipe dream. He says his family was among those who were relocated from the Brazzaville informal settlement 7 years ago to this area. Chuma says, like many residents here, they are faced with unhygienic conditions of sewage spillages and poor ablution facilities, which leave an unpleasant smell that is thick in the air day and night. Some have even left their dwellings.
But
Garbage is also piling up due to illegal dumping. Community leaders say the municipality is reluctant to respond to their complaints.
It's years and years this dumping it was here. You can see as one toilet that was installed there in 2017. It is still there. You can see where you go, some of the toilets, waste, they're coming from the very same toilet. Community that they don't have a place where they can go for a toilet because of the toilets are full of waste. The city of Tshwane, they're reluctant, they don't want to come. I wrote several letters. I went to the city of Tshwane. Every day I was there at the city of Tshwane, as if I've got an office, I'm working for the city of Tshwane.
Pala says the issue of housing hasn't been addressed either. He says they've become used to unfulfilled promises of political parties who only exploit communities for votes.
We know that they are going to come next year because now local governments are just around the corner. That's when they are going to come. That's when they are going to come here and mislead this community. But this time, they will not succeed.
The city says it has approved township development and handed the project to the province for the construction of low-cost houses.
The intention is to have the construction of the subsidy houses to commence during the current financial year, subject to approval by the Gauteng Department of Human Settlements. The city is currently maintaining the internal streets through regular regraveling, while planning to construct the internal streets in the medium to long term. The issue of sewer blockage is a maintenance issue which will be investigated and attended to.
Mashego says to date, all 900 serviced stands have been allocated to beneficiaries, and those who could afford to build their own houses have done so. Tshwane Mayor Silas Brink says the improvement of service delivery needs finances, but he indicated that the city's cash flow is slowly but surely improving. Mulimo Moto, SABC News, Pretoria.
In international news now, Israel has carried out what it called preemptive airstrikes in Lebanon, and Hezbollah has fired a barrage of rockets towards Israel. Now, flights to and from the Ben Gurion airport in Tel Aviv have been suspended. Hezbollah did not immediately comment on the strikes. It came amid heightened expectations of an escalation between the two sides. That's since a missile strike in the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights last month killed 12 youngsters, and the Israeli military assassinated a senior Hezbollah commander in Beirut in response. Right, and that was the week ahead. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday afternoon. The news continues at the top of the hour here on the SABC News Channel. From myself and the team, take care.